an asteroid heavier than the Eiffel Tower slammed into the atmosphere. And then, 30 kilometers above the ground, it exploded. This violent event was brighter than the sun, but so high up that it was silent for a full nipple. What makes the Chelyabinsk incident kind of embarrassing is that the very same day, scientists had predicted that an asteroid would make a close flyby of Earth. And they were right. 16 hours after Chelyabinsk, a similar-sized asteroid, known as Duende, came within 27,000 kilometers of Earth's surface. That's closer than satellites in geosynchronous orbit. But while they correctly predicted this close approach at detecting asteroids before they hit us, since 1988, over 1,200 asteroids bigger than a meter have collided with the Earth. And of those, we detected only 5 before they hit. Never with more than a day of warning before they strike. What are the chances that a big asteroid will hit, wiping out most, if not all, life on Earth? And if we saw one coming, what could we do about it? Asteroids are the leftover debris from when our solar system formed. 4.5 billion years ago, rocks and dust clumped together into molten protoplanets. Inside, heavy elements, metals like iron, nickel, and iridium, sank into the core, leaving lighter silicate minerals on the surface. Some of these protoplanets grew into the planets we know today, but many more collided with each other, breaking into pieces. These pieces continued orbiting the sun and smashing into each other and breaking into even smaller fragments. These became the asteroids, which is why some of them are rocky, loose conglomerates of gravel-sized rocks called rubble piles, and others, from the cores of planetesimals, are mostly metal. Most of the asteroids have stable orbits between Mars and Jupiter, in the main asteroid belt, but some have made their way closer to Earth, and these are known as near-Earth objects. They are of greatest interest to us because of the threat they pose. In his last book, Stephen Hawking considered an asteroid impact to be the greatest threat to life on Earth. But finding asteroids is difficult for several reasons. Most are spotted by ground-based telescopes.
So what you do is you take a sequence of pictures, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you look for essentially a moving dot. And it's moving because it's orbiting around the sun, whereas the stuff far away, the stars and galaxies, are not.
But you have to look carefully. Asteroids are not very big. They range from meters up to kilometers in size. And in the vast expanse of space, rocks like that just don't stand out. And even the small ones can be damaging. The Chelyabinsk meteor was only around 20 meters in diameter, roughly the width of 2 school buses. Plus, asteroids are rough and dark. They only reflect around 15% of the light that hits them. So our best chance to see them is when they're fully illuminated by the sun. And that's why over 85% of the near-Earth asteroids we've detected were found in the 45 degrees of sky directly opposite the sun. This is called the opposition effect, and it means there are likely more near-Earth and potentially hazardous asteroids that haven't been detected yet. Any asteroid approaching from the direction of the sun just can't be seen. This is exactly what happened with Chelyabinsk. So far, we have detected and cataloged 1 million asteroids, the vast majority of which are in the main asteroid belt. But 24,000 are near-Earth objects, ones that we need to keep a particularly close eye on, because even once you've detected
this little arc of motion and predicted far into the future. So what you need is observations over years and years. But even all of the planets have gravity, and all of the planets are pulling on near-Earth asteroids and can change the orbit significantly. So there is something at a time you don't know where the asteroid is going to be. And in practice, what that means is we can't do any work more than 100
And this is pretty important because we know with certainty if one does hit, the results will be dramatic. This is Barringer Crater in Arizona. It's named after mining engineer Daniel Barringer, who was the first to suggest it was formed by a meteorite impact. The prevailing view, even up until the 1950s, was that it was created by volcanic activity. But Barringer was convinced it was the site of an iron meteorite impact. So in 1903, he staked a mining claim and began drilling for the metallic meteorite, which he believed to be worth more than $1 billion 1903 dollars.
And then they started to do other exploratory drills, and this went on for years and decades. Now, he was drilling around the wall, he found nothing. So what they didn't realize is, and that gas is super hot and super high pressure, and it explodes, and it blows out the crater. So the projectile doesn't really exist after the impact.
He spent 27 years mining the crater, drilling down to a depth of over 400 meters. But what he was searching for had vaporized on impact 50,000 years earlier. The 50-meter asteroid, not that much bigger than Chelyabinsk, released the energy equivalent of 10 megatons of TNT. That's over 600 times the energy of the Hiroshima bomb. So the thing that most closely resembles a meteorite impact is a very large nuclear explosion.
So essentially it launches a whole bunch of debris into suborbital trajectories. So the ejector goes around the... And what that means is the whole sky lights up with wall-to-wall meteors. So you can imagine the sky turning inside a toaster oven. And it cooks everything on the ground. So these guys were basically cooked
alive.
Cooked alive as they're walking around. The only animals that had a chance were the ones living in tunnels under the ground or maybe in the water. And they were able to...
And this is possibly where the greatest threat of asteroids remains. A few hundred meters is large enough to obliterate a large city, but small enough that we haven't detected them all yet.
We're missing a lot of 100-meter sized projectiles, and those guys are big enough to cause substantial damage on the Earth depending on where they hit. We don't know how that would work out. Even when you got it there, and even if you could explode it on the surface or in the surface, it's not clear what you would do, because typically what happens is you blow up a body and out, but not very quickly, and then gravity pulls them back together again. So it would reform as a rubble pile if it was not already a rubble pile to begin with, which it probably would be because of past impacts. So blowing up a rubble pile, you could be all gentle and attach a rocket to the asteroid and just try to push it aside. Let's nudge it aside. Instead of trying to blow it up, let's just push it gently aside so that it deflects it and it doesn't hit the Earth. None of the rockets that we have can push it around enough. You would have to keep the rockets attached to the surface, which we don't know how to do. Remember, it's a rotating body for centuries to have a significant effect on the motion of the asteroid. So forget bombs, forget attaching rockets. Ablating the surface, basically you boil the surface with a laser. We don't have any lasers powerful enough and probably can't make lasers powerful enough to do that from the Earth. We would have to take the lasers to the object, which is even more difficult. Asteroid in cooking foil, aluminum cooking foil is another nice one. It may be a good one, the best one, but it still doesn't really work because we don't know how to do that. We don't have a way to launch enough. And then we looked at the history of city evacuations. And we looked at cases, where, for example, you have like a week's warning where some hurricane system is going to come in and flood a city. And evacuation just doesn't work either. And the reason is very, very simple. Like going into a city, there are not that many freeways. If you have millions of people trying to get on a freeway, the first time a car breaks down, you block that freeway. So instantly you have millions of people trying to get out of the target zone, and they won't be able to because all of the roads will be instantly blocked. So again, even evacuation of a city is probably the most hopeful thing, that we build the telescopes. Let's put this telescope in space. That will be a major contribution to understanding the threat from the asteroids.
Now, if you're concerned about the world ending in an asteroid impact, let me set your mind at ease. There are many other potential global catastrophes summarized in this map of doom made by my friend Dom over at Domain of Science. So if you want to see which of these horrible scenarios is likeliest to be our downfall, well, go check out the video on his channel.